So for this afternoon, we will talk about two topics. Our first topic is your role of IT in accounting, and our second topic is your Excel basics. Okay, so let's start with your role of IT. So in your role of IT, to properly understand it, of course, is we need to define information technology or IT. So what is IT? IT is the technology involving the development, maintenance, and use of computer systems, software, and networks for the processing and distribution of data. So we are using three important items for the interrelation of your process and distribution of data. And these are your computer systems, your software, and then lastly, your networks. So having had your computer subjects before, of course, you already know the basics of IT and a computer. But to refresh your minds, let's try to define these different items. So first, you have your computer system. So what is a computer system? A computer system generally is a collection of different entities. And what are these entities? If you still remember, we call these entities as hardware, software, and your liveware. So what are these software, hardware, and liveware? What is the purpose of these three entities? Generally, these three entities, hardware, software, and liveware, process, manage, and present information through the format of your computer system. So they work interrelatedly, hardware, software, and liveware. So what is a hardware? A hardware are physical parts of a computer, physical parts of your computer. So what are some examples of your physical parts of your computer? Some example are first your CPU. If you don't have your CPU, of course, you cannot make use of your computer. So your monitor, your keyboards, etc. So those are hardwares. Next, we have your software. So how do we define a software? A software is known as your different programs or applications. Generally, a software can be categorized as either a system software or an application software. So what's the difference between a software is a system software and an application software? A system software is your operating system. So operating system. Examples are Windows, Linux, and of course, Macintosh for Mac users. That is a system software, operating system. How about an application software? So these are different applications or softwares installed into your computer, such as your Microsoft Word, Microsoft Excel, your Paint, etc. Those are considered application software. And last entity under your computer system is your liveware. Liveware is known as your computer user. So the one who uses the computer is known as the liveware. Sometimes a liveware is also known as a humanware. Why is a liveware an important entity under your computer system? Because generally a computer system cannot run on its own. Therefore, you need a person to run that computer system, and that person is your liveware. So the user, of course, commands the computer system to execute the different functions or instructions, particularly on your software and hardware. Okay, so we're done defining what is a computer system. And of course, we're also done knowing what are the items inside a computer system. Next, we have your software. So what is a software? As we have defined a while back, in software is your different programs or applications. So whatever is the definition of your computer systems under your software is still the same here under your software for information technology. And last item under your information technology, we have your computer networks. So computer networks refer to your interconnected computing device or computing systems that exchange data and, of course, share data with each other. They can also share resources with each other. So, for example, from one computer to another computer, they are connected through a network, and through that network, they can exchange and share data. So, computer one to another computer two. So generally, information technology helps you to process and distribute data. Now we go to your role of IT. For your role of IT, we particularly place emphasis as to the role of IT into your accounting. Why? Because based on our subject, IT tools and applications for accounting. So our emphasis will be for accounting. So having known that IT helps you to process and distribute data, therefore, what is the role of IT as to accounting or the role of IT itself for business? So the role of IT is that it helps management at different levels to make better decisions by providing the necessary information to managers. Why is that? Because based on your IT, based on our IT, which of course provides data. This data will help our manager, of course, to make decision. But what's the role of that data? The data based on IT, since our process is now automated because of IT, then this data is more relevant and reliable. Furthermore, it is a timely data. Remember, timeliness of the data is very important in making decisions. Therefore, because of this particular data, which is provided by RT, by IT, of course, we can make a better decision or we can provide a uh, more informed decision for our managers. So that is the role of IT. Again, to recap here, information technology, it is the integration of your computer systems, software, and networks, particularly for the management, processing, and distribution of data. Now, when we talk about computer systems, this is composed of three different entities. You have your hardware, which is your physical parts. Software, these are your different program applications. This can either be a system, software, or an application software. We also have a liveware, which is the computer software. And then we have your networks. This again connects certain computing devices to exchange data and share data. Now, let's proceed to the role of IT to key business functions. So the following are the key business functions of a particular business. First, we have your marketing and sales. Then you have your production. Then you have your accounting and finance. Then you have your human resources. And lastly, we have your administration. So let's start first with marketing and sales. So under marketing and sales, take note that marketing is different from sales. So when we talk about marketing, the function, of course, is to determine the product or service to be offered. And of course, you advertise and promote that product or service. So that is the function of marketing. And under the sales, what is the function of your sales? This is, of course, the selling of your product or service. So what is the role of your IT on your marketing and sales? Through the use of different softwares or through the use of different computer systems, you can now determine your particular niche, your location wherein you can sell your product. You can also create and execute different advertising, public relations, promotions, uh, knowing the needs of your customers, etc. So that is the role of IT for your marketing and sales. IT already helped them, of course, to process those different datas and of course in making decision on properly marketing and of course selling your products. Next, we have your production. So what is the function of your production process? Or your production department? So your production department, of course, oversees the manufacturing production of the company or the business. So oversees the manufacturing. Therefore, this only applies to manufacturing businesses. It does not apply to other businesses. So what is the role of IT for productions? Generally, the IT helps to oversee the physical plant, the needs as to materials, as to labor, and also the work schedule, including production processes, because there is already a software which computes or helps you to look into these different items for production. It also includes some supervisory functions for the production process. So supervising, of course, the direct labor to look whether we are on track on our production quota, etc. Next, we have your accounting and finance. So what is the principal function of your accounting and finance? For accounting and finance, of course, the principal function is to provide financial reports. Financial reports. And these financial reports can either be an external report or an internal report. When we say external report, you know this one as your financial statements, which is used by your different end users or users of your financial statements. And then we also have your internal reports, and your internal reports are only used by your management. So what's the role of IT in your accounting and finance? You already know the role of IT. It provides data. But what data is used by your accounting and finance? That is your data from your financial reports. But what particular information technology do we use? We know this one as your different accounting software. So through your accounting software, you can now provide your data through the form of your reports. Next, you have your human resources. What is the particular function of a human resource? Of course, that is to manage your manage personnel and your employees. So generally, what is the role of IT for your human resources? So a software can be designated in looking for your employees. You can also evaluate the performance of your employees. And based on that evaluation, you can give promotion and then the uh, different benefits that you could give to that particular employee. So what is the data provided by our IT here? The data provided here is the performance of the employee. And lastly, for administration, what is the main function of the administration or the administrative department? That is the decision making as to the different policies, strategies, and goals of the company. So based on the reports again that provides by IT, they could make proper decisions as to these items. Okay. So again, what are the key business functions? First, marketing and sales. The function of your marketing is to advertise and promote your products or services. What is the function of sales? That is the selling of your product or services. Next, as to production. What is the function of production? That is, and to your manufacturing of your products. This only applies to manufacturing businesses. As to accounting and finance, what is the function? The financial reports, whether internal or external. And then we have your human resources. The function is to manage your personnel and employees. And then we have your administration. The function is for your decision making for policies, strategies, and goals. Okay, so we're done with our first topic, that is the role of IT. We proceed now to our next topic, which is your Excel basics. So let's proceed. So upon opening your Excel, you will view your Excel screen. So upon opening of your Excel, you can view our Excel program screen. So here are different numbered items of uh, here are numbered items which you can view on your Excel screen. So first we have here number one. Number one is this item. So you can see here book dash Excel. Number one is known as your title bar. So book dash Excel is known as your title bar. So what is the use of your title bar? Title bar is the program and the name of your workbook. So the name of the program, which is Excel, and the name of your workbook, which is book. Okay, the whole Excel is known as a workbook. So normally your Excel, when you open it, default name is book. So that can either be book one, if ever book two, etc. And you can rename it after saving it. Okay. So again, title bar shows you the name of your workbook and the name of the program. Let's proceed to number two. Number two is this item. Okay. So what is this item? Number two is known as your quick access toolbar. So what is a quick access toolbar? Quick access toolbar contains your common commands, So these items are known as your common commands. So based on this screen, what are our common commands? We have here your save, undo, redo. And if you want to add other commands here, we have here a drop-down menu. So from the drop-down menu, you can add other commands. Next, number three, we have the item here. Number three, we have the item here. So what do we call those items? We call that your display display options. Okay. So what is a display option? The display option, of course, contain tools for the display of your Excel screen. So you can minimize, maximize, or close your screen. Okay. And you can also change your window size. Number four, we have all of these items as number four. Okay. We call those as ribbon. Ribbon are the sets of commands. So all sets of commands are provided under your ribbon. So home, insert, page layout, etc. You can see those the different commands. So if we try to compare a quick access toolbar versus your ribbon, a quick access toolbar only contains certain commands, which of course are common to the user, while a ribbon contains all necessary commands. Ribbon contains all necessary commands. Next, we go with number five. Number five. So what do we call this number five? Number five is known as your Microsoft account user. So it displays to you your Microsoft account and your different options for your Microsoft account. You can log in or log out your Microsoft account, which uses, of course, that particular Microsoft Excel. We go to number six. Number six are the items here. Okay, number six. So number six is known as your row or column head. So these are the numbers and letters as your headings. This organizes cells by rows and columns. Now we go to number seven. This item here is your number seven. Number seven is known as your name box. So what is this name box? This shows the name of the cell. Name of the cell. By default, the name of the cell is, of course, the number and the letter and the number. Okay, so by default, the name box shows you the letter and the number of a particular cell. So for example, I want this particular cell under the name box that is displayed as letter C and then number 5. Okay, so that is displayed as C5. Number 7, name box. Number 8. Okay, so this is number 8. Number 8 is known as your formula bar. Number 8 is your formula bar. Formula bar represents either values or your formulas. Values or your formulas that is placed on the cell. We go now to number 9. Number 9, this whole white screen here with the different cells is known as your worksheet. Number 9 is known as your worksheet. So worksheet holds your spreadsheet that, of course, you use to enter your data into the cells. So the whole here is known as worksheet. And then we have these items for number 10. Number 10, we call this your worksheet tabs. Okay, worksheet tabs or tabs. So by default, you have 3 tabs upon opening your Excel. You have sheet 1, sheet 2, and your sheet 3. Next, we have your 11. Okay, so number 11, we call this one as your scroll bar. Scroll bar. So you can either have a horizontal scroll bar or a vertical scroll bar. So what's the use of this scroll bar? Of course, for you to properly view the parts of the worksheet. And then number 12, last item here. So number 12. Number 12 is known as your status bar and view buttons. Generally, here, if you can see here, ready, it says ready. This is the status of your Excel. Well, these items here are your different view buttons. So you can view and also you can maximize or minimize the worksheet under your view button. So these are the items you will see upon opening an Excel. First, again, your title bar. What is in our title bar? The title bar shows you the name of your workbook and the name of the program. Next, we have your quick access toolbar. So what do you see on your quick access toolbar? Your quick access toolbar shows your command commands. Again, what's the difference between a quick access toolbar and a ribbon? The difference between a quick access toolbar and a ribbon is that in a quick access toolbar, it contains only certain commands, while in a ribbon, it contains all commands. Next, number 3, we have your display options. So under display options, take note, you can minimize, maximize, or even close the whole display. Number 5, we have your Microsoft account user. It is displayed here beside the share. And then we have also your row and column heading for number 6. So it is composed of alphanumeric codes. So alpha first and then your number. Next, we have your name box, which shows the name of the cell. So the letter and number. And then number 8, we have your formula bar, which can contain only a value or a formula. So when we say value, that is the amount you place or the name you place or the word you place. Formula, generally this starts with equal sign. So value, let's say you place your AMA. Formula, you can hear B5 divided by E1. So you can make use of that formula. Next, worksheet. Your worksheet are these different cells and then worksheet tabs, different sheets under your workbook. Okay, scroll bar, vertical or horizontal scroll bar, and then we have your status bar and view button. Take note, from time to time, we use the word workbook, we mean Excel file. One workbook is known as your Excel file. one workbook is known as your Excel file. So those are the items you see on your Excel screen. So after knowing your Excel screen, we proceed now to different basics of your Excel. So first, viewing multiple windows at once. So how do we view multiple windows at once? You can only make use of this if you have multiple workbooks open. Multiple workbooks open. So how do we do that? First, click View tab. Okay. Click View in your ribbon, click View, and then under View, you click Arrange All. And then there will be a screen which pops up for your arrangement. So on the third one, you choose your arrangement. Choose your arrangement. So what are the applicable arrangement? So the first arrangement here is styled. So for example, you open three workbooks. Example, you open three workbooks. The first workbook is AP. The second workbook is titled AR or named AR, and the third book is known as Cash. So if that is tiled, it will show workbooks in a tiled manner. So it arranges the workbooks on the screen as tiles, either vertical, horizontal, depending on how many windows are open. So in our example, we have three windows open. So for example, AP, AR, and then we have here Cash. That is your tile. How about your horizontal? So horizontal, you will maximize the width of the screen. So for example, this is your screen. So it will stack the windows horizontally. So for example, we have here your AP, AR, and hash. No, horizontal pala. Horizontal. So for horizontal, the width of the screen, so AP, AR, and cache. Next, we have your vertical. So under vertical, it stacks your screen using the height. So we have here AP, AR, and then lastly, cache. And for the last arrangement option, we have your cascade, which now layers the workbooks. For example, so AP, AR, and cache. So it will layer the workbook under your screen. So you can do this whenever, again, you have multiple workbooks open. So how can we do this? First, you click the view in your ribbon, click arrange all, and then now you choose your arrangement option that can either be tiled, horizontal, vertical, or cascade, depending on what you want to, or how do you want to view those workbooks open. And then once you already pick your arrangement options, you click OK. Okay, click OK. So that's how you view multiple windows at once. So again, we have either tiled, horizontal, vertical, or cascade. Next, we have your cat copy and paste. Of course, you already know the basic cat copy and paste. Control C, Control V, Control X. So those are your cat copy and paste. But what I want you to look at in your cat and copy paste are your different pasting options. So how do you access your pasting options? So that is your Control plus Alt plus D, or that is for Windows key. For Macintosh, you use Command plus Control plus D. Okay? Command plus Control plus D. Now, what are the different pasting options? So the first pasting options that is listed here is your command paste. So under paste, you will only paste using your default settings. So whatever is the default setting under our our Excel file, then we will paste it. We will paste whatever is copied using that setting. Next, you have your formulas. What you will paste here is the formula from the cells. So for example, you have copied, okay, so let's say in cell B5, you have placed here B5 all over 100 or B5 divided by 100. If you paste that in cell C5, you will copy the formula. So it will become C5 over 100. Sir, why is it C5 now, not B5? You will learn later because we call this one a relative reference. Relative reference. So wherever you paste that particular cell, it changes based on its reference, based on reference. So here, since we refer it to B5, if you paste it in B5, it will become B5. But if we paste it in C5, the relative reference will be C5. But my point here is that if you paste it from one formula to another, if you paste the formula from one cell to another, you will copy the formula. And that formula here is like this. Take note, a cell can contain either value or formula. Sir, when can we say there is a formula? If there is an equal sign. If there is an equal sign. Next, your formulas and number formatting. So what is copied here is the format of the number together with the formula. So if it is formatted with a color coordinated pattern, let's see, red and then size 14, and you copy the formula including the formatting, which is red plus size 14. Next, we have your keep source formatting. Wherever you have copied that data, once you pasted it on our Excel, whatever is the source of the data, the format of that source will be pasted on our Excel. So for example, you copied in a Word and the format is like green, size 16, large, that is the text. And then if you keep source formatting, whatever is the source of the copied item, which is from Word, will be pasted in our Excel. Next, we have your no borders formatting. How about a no borders formatting? So once you have no borders set as a pasting option, if you copied a cell with border, that is what is copied. Once it is pasted without border, cell without border. So that is a no border pasting option. Next, we have your keep source column feeds or column mid formatting. So whatever you copy from one cell to another, so for example, a cell is size 2. If you copy it in a size cell 1 and you use your option as keep source column mid, so if you copy this to here, it will be pasted as 2. Next, transpose. Under transpose, the data will be flipped from rows to columns or columns to rows, vice versa. So for example, so let's say this is our different cells. So you have here 1, 2, 3. So you copy this one and then you paste it here using transpose. So it will transpose the data from columns to rows. Okay? From columns to rows. Next, values. So when you paste values, whatever is the value from that cell, you will remove all formatting and formulas. So for example, in cell B5, you place their B5 over 100. Okay? This will yield us 20. If you copy cell B5 and paste it as value in cell C3, let's say, what will be pasted is 20. Okay. So what's the difference here of values and formulas? So a while back, let's not use C3. Let's use C5. So here, what we use is pasting as formula. Next, what we use is pasting as value. So what's the difference? Under pasting as formula, what you pasted here is the formula itself. So you copied the formula, and when you paste it, the formula will be pasted. But since we are using relative reference, it will refer to whichever it relates to. While if it's value, so we have here a formula under P5, which is 20. If you copy this and you paste it in cell C5, and your pasting option is value, what is copied is not the formula, but the value which had been given based on our formula, which is 20. So in short, what is pasted under your value is the result of your formula or whatever value you want to paste. But in your formula, what is pasted is your formula itself. Next, you have your values and number formatting. Under values and number formatting, what is pasted is the value based on this plus the format, right? Value plus the format. How about values plus source formatting? Values plus the format from whatever source it is. Because we have already done discussing what is a number format and a source format. Number format that can either be decimal, percentage, whatever is the number format. While source format, whatever is the format based on your based on where you copied it. So cell B3, for example, is colored red, size 14. So that can be your source formatting. Next, we have your formatting. So what is spaced here is only the formatting used in the source cells. So for example, you have here a cell 1. This is colored red with border size 14. However, you don't want to copy the value 1. You want only to copy the format. Okay? Do not copy the value or formula, but you want to copy the format. So how will you paste that into even another cell? So your pasting option will be formatting. Your pasting option will be formatting. Next, paste link. So what you will paste here is a link to the selected cells. Link to the selected cells. And then picture of the selected cells. And then link picture of the cells with a link to the original cells. So what's important here is the picture and the link picture. So let's compare picture versus link picture. So for example, here are the cells. And then I'll use another color. And let's say we will select them all. So this is your selected cell. Okay, selected cell. If you copy this whole item and you paste it as a picture, what will show once you paste it is, of course, a picture or a PNG of that particular cell with the data, you have copied. But if that is a linked picture, what happens is that any changes will also follow the picture. So for example, I will place here 5. I will place here 5. So once it is a linked picture, it will also show in our picture that there is a change, which is number 5, So you inserted another data on the selected area, which is number 5. Okay, so again, I know you already know how to cut, copy, and paste, but I want to place emphasis on the different pasting options that is given under your Excel. So what are those different pasting options? So paste your formulas, including formatting, no borders, transpose, values, including formatting, and link picture. What is important here in our class is this. You know how to use the pasting option of formula. You know how to use the pasting option of values, including number formatting, these three. And lastly, when to use picture and link picture. So those are very important in working into Excel. But of course, all other items is also noteworthy. So those are the different pasting options for Excel. Next, we go to your autofill. So under your autofill, we can either have an autofill with a fixed value or a series. Again, autofill can either be of fixed value or a series. So here in this particular slide, we have a fixed value. So if that is our fixed value and you want to autofill until the end of the series, you just double click. You need to double click the little plus sign here. Okay, so double click the little plus sign and it will autofill until the last series, which is B14. Okay, so that is an autofill based on fixed value. Autofill based on fixed value. How about an autofill based on a series? So we have here autofill based on a series. So what you need to do here is first set up the series. Then you now autofill. So a while back, we only have karaoke as our agent, which is a fixed value. So once we click the little plus sign here, it will autofill until B14. Now we want to set up a series based on a date. So what do we do? First, set up the series. So January 2 and January 3. Once you autofill here, Excel will automatically understood that the next one is a plus one of the previous date. So January 4 until January 14. Okay, that's how autofill series works. So what's the difference between fixed and series? Okay, if it is an autofill fix, whatever is the initial cell, it will be copied throughout the whole series or at the end of the series. But if it is a series, you need to set up the series first, okay? So we're talking about your difference between fixed and series. We said under fixed, whatever is the initial cell, if not, it will be copied over through the whole series or through the whole end of the cell. So for example, karaoke, and then we copied that or we autofilled it until the end of the entry, we copied still karaoke. But if that is series, first you need to set up the series and then autofill. Automatically Excel will understand your series as an additional date from January 2 and 3, so January 4 until January 14. So that is your autofill, fix, and series. Next, we proceed to your hide and unhide. So under hide and unhide, what do we need to hide or unhide? We can hide or unhide either your rows or your columns, and lastly, the whole sheet. So you know that there's worksheet tabs, you know that there can be other sheets here. You can hide or unhide them too. Okay, so how do you do or how do you hide or unhide rows, columns, or sheets? First, under Home tab or under the Home tab or ribbon, you need to click Format. Okay, click Format. But before that, of course, you need to select the rows, columns, or sheet you want to hide or unhide. And then under the Home tab, so here, select, and then under the Home tab, you click Format, and then click Hide or Unhide. So this one. And then lastly, you can either hide rows, columns, or hide sheet. So you can now hide or unhide. Furthermore, you can also unhide rows, columns, or sheet. So again, what can you hide or unhide? Hide or unhide, you have 3 rows, columns, or sheets. How to do that? Under Format, click the drop-down menu. You will see there your hide or unhide. Okay, this is your hide and unhide function of Excel. We go now to your formula. We already discussed this one. When we say value, the text itself, when it is a formula, it precedes an equal sign. Okay? All formulas must start with equal sign. But generally, for Excel, we must determine the difference of a formula and a function. Formula uses equal sign and the basic math functions, such as plus, minus, multiply, and divide. So those are your basic functions. While your functions use your different Excel functions. So such as your logical functions, time functions, text functions, so etc. Okay, so you can either use formula using basic math functions, and then a function using Excel functions. Okay, value versus formula. Value, the text itself. Formula, it precedes an equal sign. Formula, function, what's the difference? Under formula, math functions, basic function using Excel functions. But overall, we call this one as your Excel formulas. Excel formulas. So what is a function? A function is a preset of formulas. So we said we have very different Excel formulas. So that can either be a basic formula or a function. So there are several hundred functions available under your Excel, and this function can either be a simple function or a complex function. So simple functions such as sum, average, while a complex function contains different arguments or multiple functions. Okay, so inside the parentheses, there are additional parentheses. So normally we call those as complex functions. Okay. So since we talk about an argument, what is an argument? An argument are the data used by the function to make a calculation. They appear within the parentheses. So as I told you, a function or an argument looks like this. Parenthesis after parenthesis after parenthesis for complex. Well, for simple, normally one parenthesis is enough. Okay. So what are the common functions? So first, we have your different function categories under Excel. First, we have your financial. This is used to calculate interest, payments, and your loans. Used normally for amortization and the like, including IRR computation. Next, you have your date and time function, used to calculate date and time values. We also have your math and trigonometry function, used to compute some math and trigonometry items such as sum, cosine, tan. And then we have your statistical, usually calculates for some statistical items such as averages, standard deviations, etc. We also have your lookup and references. We look for values over the whole cell or over the whole worksheet or over the whole workbook through this lookup and reference values. Database, you will look up based on a list or database. Text function, use with text or labels. One example is concatenate. If you remember, concatenate function is used to add up text or combine text. For example, in a cell C1, we have Jake, and cell D1, we have Tamayang. And we want to combine this under cell E1, so we can use concatenate. Okay, so that is under your text. You also have your logical functions. So some logical functions, which is normally conditional function. We have your if, what if, then functions. We have also your information functions, which return an information about values and the worksheet itself. So based on the values provided and the worksheet itself. And then we have your engineering functions, some engineering calculations, some cube functions. But under our subject, we will focus mainly under financial, statistical, lookup, and of course, logical. So those are the important functions that we will discuss in our subject. Next, we go to your referencing. Okay, so referencing can either be reference to your another worksheet or reference to another workbook or reference to a particular cell. Okay, so referencing can either be a referencing to another worksheet, another workbook, or another cell. So what's the difference of the three again? When we say worksheet, these are your tabs within the workbook. Another workbook means to another Excel file. And cell means within the active worksheet. Okay, so tabs within the workbook. So if this is the whole workbook, these are the tabs within the workbook. So what do we do here? We reference from one worksheet to another worksheet. So we call this one your different worksheet tabs. Okay. So we want to get the Beijing sales in February. Beijing sales in February. So how do we reference that? First, click the cell where you want to place the reference. So what is the problem here? Our problem is we want to reference the February Beijing sales. Okay, so it is under cell C4. So how do we do that? First, we click cell C4 where we want to place the reference, and then put an equal sign or place the formula in the formula bar. Third one, you click the worksheet where the reference is located. So that is February worksheet. And finally, under number 4, you click the reference. What is our reference here? Cell, letter B, and number 4, so cell B4. That is our reference. So, and then you click the check mark to end the referencing. You will see this one. So the general formula in a reference to another worksheet is that you place equal sign, the name of the worksheet, and then you have exclamation point, and then the cell reference. That's why, since we want to refer to Feb, so we have here Feb, place the exclamation point, and then our reference B4. Okay, that's how you reference it. How about if you want to reference Tokyo, February sales? So to reference it, again, we go to your February tab, exclamation point, and then we look at your Tokyo sales. Our Tokyo sales is in cell B8. So February, Feb, and then exclamation point, and then B8. Okay? That's how we reference to another worksheet. Again, what is the use of referencing to another worksheet? So if there are multiple worksheet tabs, from same workbook, okay? Worksheet tabs from same workbook. How about reference to another workbook? So we have here multiple workbooks. Okay, so as you can see, we have two workbooks here. The first one is the book Excel preview. The second one is your March sales. Okay, so book and then March sales. So these are our multiple workbooks. So we want to get the March Beijing sales. So what is the problem here? We need to get the March Beijing sales. And the March sales is in another workbook. Okay, we want to get March Beijing sales, and the March sales is in another workbook. So how do we reference it? So first, you click the cell where you want your reference to be placed. Second, place your formula or equal sign under formula bar. Third and fourth, you open the another workbook. And fifth, you click the reference. Okay, so we want to get the March Beijing sales. The March Beijing sales is in B4. So it is March sales B4. Okay, so what is the formula here? The general formula here is equal to an apostrophe, close parenthesis or close whatever we call that, and then name of workbook, then name of worksheet, and then apostrophe, and then your exclamation point and the cell reference. So since our problem is your March Beijing sale, our answer here is equal to apostrophe March sales workbook, and then let's say it is in sheet 1, and then our cell reference, which is B4. Okay, that's how we reference to another workbook. So March sales, sheet 1, B4. What if the problem is March Paris sale is in another workbook? So what is our answer? Our answer is apostrophe, then close parenthesis, whatever you call it, and then the name of the workbook, which is March sales, and then the name of the worksheet, which is, let's say, sheet 1, and then cell Paris is in B7. cell B7. That's how you reference to another workbook. Okay, so we're done with two referencing, reference to another worksheet, and reference to another workbook. Now we go to your cell references. So a cell reference tells Excel where to look for values to use in a formula. So there are two kinds of cell references. We have your relative and absolute. Okay, so cell reference. This can either be relative cell reference or an absolute cell reference. What did we say a while back under your cell reference? So the cell within the same worksheet and workbook. Okay, cell references. There are three kinds of references. Don't forget this. The first reference is to another worksheet. What's this one? Same workbook, different worksheet. Next, another workbook. What's this reference? Different workbook, different worksheet. Okay? While for cell reference, same workbook and same worksheet. Okay? So we'll refer to a cell within the same workbook and the same worksheet. That can either be relative and absolute. Relative, meaning it changes, while absolute, it is fixed. Okay? A cell reference, which is relative, changes, while if it's absolute, it is fixed. So first, we dwell with relative references. Relative references refer to cells in relation to the location of the cell that contains the formula. So when the formula is moved, it references new cells based on their location. So as you can see, when the formula is moved, it references new cells based on their location. So what happens here? The reference change, okay, based on your location. So the default type of references in Excel is known as relative references. Let's have an example of a relative reference. So this is the same worksheet, same workbook, same worksheet, and same workbook. Okay, we want to, what is the problem here? The problem is to compute for the monthly average of each agent. Okay, we want to compute for the monthly average of each agent. So how do we compute that? So to compute for monthly average, that is equal to total sales divided by 12. Okay. So to compute that, we use here in our formula the cell for the sale, which is B4, and we divide it to 12. Okay. So when you try to autofill it until the last entry, which is in pepperoni, the reference will change. Okay, so initially, we place B4 over 12. Since we are using relative references, once it is pasted to another or copied to another, the reference change. So since this is in C4, it is B4 over 12. Then in C5, we use now B5 over 12 until B8 over 12. That is what I mean when the references change. Okay, so initially it is B4. Once it is pasted or autofilled, what happened? The reference change also based on the location of the cell. So this is since 4, 4, 5, 5, 8, 8, like that. Or If you try to move it onto another, whatever is the location of the cells based on your relative reference will be copied over on that item where you pasted it. Okay, that is a relative reference. So next, we have your absolute reference. What is an absolute reference? If a relative reference changes, an absolute reference is fixed. Okay? This is denoted under the cell itself, while absolute, we have dollar signs in between. E.g., cell A1 here, it is cell A $1. So there are dollar signs in between, or dollar signs before the alpha and the number. There are dollar signs before the alpha and the number. So it will always refer to the same cell if ever it is copied and pasted. Okay, so let's have an example. So what is the problem here? The problem in this particular Excel workbook is to compute for the commission of each agent. So what is our formula here? The commission is based on your sales multiplied by the commission rate. Okay. Our sales changes. Okay. Take note, our sales changes because sales of each agent differs. Sales for each agent are different, while the commission rate is fixed. Okay. Therefore, to compute for your commission rate, we must use an absolute reference. While for your sales here, we will only use a relative reference. Okay, that's why our formula here to compute for the commission, take note the commission rate is in E1, commission rate. And then our sales are in B4 to B8. So how do we compute now for our commission? So since our commission is fixed, our rate is fixed, therefore we use absolute reference. It is placed under E1, so $E, $1. You multiply that to your sales, which differs, therefore we use only relative reference. We have here B4. That's why our formula here is B4 and then multiplied to a absolute reference. So relative reference up to absolute reference. And if ever you will autofill it, what is the formula under cell D8? What is the formula under cell D8? If you autofill it, your answer will be B8, which is a relative reference, multiplied to the absolute reference, which is $E, $1. Okay? Just take note the difference between an absolute reference and a relative reference. So let's wrap up the different references. So what are the different references that we have? First, to another worksheet. Next, to another workbook. Next, cell reference. If that is to another worksheet, what we do is we place the name of the worksheet, exclamation point, and the cell reference. To another workbook, apostrophe, open parenthesis, name of the workbook, close parenthesis, name of the worksheet, uh, apostrophe, and then we have your exclamation point, and then your cell reference. And then for cell reference, that can either be a cell reference, which is relative. So let's say A1, or absolute. Let's say $A$1. Okay, so those are the three different references to another worksheet, to another workbook, and then lastly, cell reference. Next, we have your cell and range names. So what is the use of your cell and range names? Normally, it is very hard to or very confusing for other cells because there are too many alpha and numbers. So there are too many cells in a worksheet. So to specify it, the cell, you please a cell name. Okay, so cell references can be confusing because there are too many cells. Therefore, you can change the name of that particular cell reference. So you can define a name for a cell range, or even multiple non-adjacent cells. So to specify a cell, you place a cell name. So how do you do that cell name? So if this is our workbook, the problem here is we want to specify E1, cell E1 here. This is known as cell E1 as read. Okay, so how do we do that? First, you need to click the cell. The second one, under your name box, change the name. So second and third, under the name box, change the name to read. Okay, so as you can see, normally the name box should display here E1, but you can change the name now from E1 to read. Okay, so you can now specify it. So to compute for the commission, you can now just multiply it. So instead of using an absolute reference, our formula a while back is equal to before multiplied by absolute reference of cell E1. But since we changed the name of E1 to read, you can now just multiply it to before to the name read. Okay, that's how your range and cell names work. So you can specify the name of a particular cell. Next, we have your cell and range names. So if you look into it, we now use the read formula because we changed cell E1 to read. Okay, just like our previous example. Now, how to navigate a named cell or range. So first, click the name box. Second, click the name box and the drop-down menu. Now you can navigate different named cells. So here we have an example name sales, agents, read, and sales. So those are different named cells. How about editing and deleting named cell? So how to edit and delete named cell? Okay. First, click the formula tab, and in the ribbons, you need to click name manager. Okay, so click name manager. So under the pop-up menu, you can now select the cell name you want to edit or delete. Then click edit or delete. Then lastly, you close the pop-up menu. So for example, we want to change rate here. And we want to change rate, then you can edit that or you can delete that. So if you want to edit it as a commission rate, yun na lang. So you place your commission rate and then click close. Okay? That's how you edit and delete a cell name.